In the next 100 days, I'm going to collect every new item from the Minecraft 1.21 Tricky Trials update while playing on hardcore mode. The catch is that we are starting on a fresh save where the only land in the entire world is this single island we spawn on. In these 100 days, we are going to take on the new Trial Chambers dungeons, which are home to the new breeze and bog mobs, with the hopes of getting a heavy core from the new ominous vaults so we can make the new mace weapon that's damage scales infinitely. During this playthrough, I also want to turn this sad little island into an oasis for us to survive and thrive on. Lastly, as a bonus objective, I am going to go and kill the Ender Dragon. With all that being said, grab yourself a snack and a drink and let's dive into the video. Day 1, I woke up and of course found myself on this nice little island. Starting off, I went ahead and walked around the island to familiarize myself with all the resources we had available. We had 2 sheep on the southern end of the island, which is great for us because that at least means we can make a bed for this 100 days, so that's good. The eastern part of the island had 3 pigs and 2 cows, which meant we could start a decent food farm in the future. The only potential issue with that was our current lack of carrots for the pigs. Next up was of course getting ourselves some morning wood and crafting a wooden pickaxe. With my new pickaxe, I made my way down into this spooky sinkhole and mined up a total of 16 cobblestone. What items am I gonna craft? Whoever guesses right in the comments gets 10 imaginary dollars from yours truly. So pause right now and take your guess. Bonus points if you even get the order right. Okay, hopefully you guessed. Now let's get to the answer. First up was a furnace, second item was an axe, third was a pickaxe, and the last item was a hoe. I'm guessing the hoe is what's gonna mess most people up since the sword costs the same. Honestly, it's kind of fitting the hoe's causing the problem because that's just how it happens in real life. Who knew Minecraft was so realistic? After a little guessing game, I went ahead and punched a bunch of grass, trying to get myself some seeds to start a wheat farm. Once I had some seeds, I realized I needed to get at least 3 iron so we could make a bucket to fill a water hole for the farm. So I went back to the sinkhole. Starting off in the mine, I found a couple pieces of coal, which I immediately turned into torches so I could protect this little area from mob spawning. While doing so, I found some more coal up high and found the rest of the first vein we mined. And about 10 blocks away from that first coal vein, we found our first bit of iron, which gave us a total of 7. Now that I had some iron to work with, I awkwardly climbed the water elevator out and started smelting it down. I spent the first 2 pieces on a pair of shears, the next 3 on a bucket, and one of our last 2 pieces on a shield, which meant we were already set up pretty good day 1, which is honestly really good for us because getting all the new items while building all that I've planned for this video is going to be hard to do in just 100 days. I mean, look at some of the drop rates on these new items. This could end up going well past 100 days, but just so we're clear, this video will not end until we get every single new item, so don't worry about it. I'm not gonna blue ball you, I promise. The next task was hoeing out the wheat farm like the real pimp I am, and then planting the seeds like the real, you know what, it's early in the video, let's actually not take it there yet. Let's just say I planted the wheat seeds like a nice normal farmer. Following the planting of the seeds, I went ahead and just set up a temporary home base next to the farm and accidentally jammed a torch into a turtle's head, which he didn't seem a fan of. Then it was time to take some wool from our sheeps and make ourselves a bed. However, we weren't actually going to use it tonight. At this point, we had 0 food and I wanted to stay out tonight and try and kill some mobs for their drops, specifically bones from skeletons for bone meal, and hopefully getting lucky to get a carrot or potato from a zombie. Since I knew I was going to take damage, I decided it would be a good idea to take out one of our 3 pigs and make ourselves some pork chops, and now it was time to start hunting. For whatever reason, I decided to shear the sheep again, and this right here may have saved my life tonight, and you're gonna see why in a minute. While fighting a zombie, a skeleton snuck up behind me, and wow, I forgot how hard these things hit when you have no armor. I was eventually able to bait the skeleton into some friendly fire, which turned the zombie into a short-term ally for ourselves. Key to that phrase was short-term ally. After that, I found myself in a tricky situation with skeletons alternating their attacks on me and was only able to take one out before a creeper came in and just ruined the party. We only had 4 hearts at this point, which meant we were 2 skeleton shots away from losing day 1, so I decided to just hightail it out of there to the eastern side of the island. At this point, with my health total and the amount of mobs that were out, I didn't think I could safely get back to my bed, so this is where that random sheep shearing came in clutch. I chopped a couple logs, and after fighting off a skeleton and creeper, I was able to make a crafting table and fresh bed to sleep in. Day 2 started with me using the bones we got last night to bone meal a few wheat crops, which gave us just enough wheat for a piece of bread. Nom nom nom. After my snack, I realized I had an infinite source of food surrounding me and went to take full advantage of it. While doing so, I still almost found a way to die by not paying attention to my breath bubbles, and was a couple seconds from losing the challenge on day 2 this time. This is going to be a really common theme once we get into the chambers, so you just wait. Also, hopefully you haven't noticed, but the screen has been slightly cut off, but it's fixed after today, so don't worry about it. When I got back to base, I threw the cod into a furnace to start cooking and then went back out to sea to continue bolstering our food supply. Real quick, just know I intermittently shear the sheep whenever I see them because we need wool and carpet for some of the builds I want to do later. And would you look at that, 17 more cod to cook. This should help ease our hunger for the next couple days. To end off day 2 in the broken aspect ratio era of the video, I went ahead and chopped trees until night came. The next 3 days on our island were all focused on getting resources and starting the construction of our first building, which was going to be a nice little fishing hut. For this, I was going to need enough wood to film a party scene on a certain orange and black website. So I began day 3 by chopping a bunch of trees down. After collecting a decent amount of wood, it was time to start building our hut, starting of course with the entrance. Does anyone else find stripping wood to be therapeutic? Because I always have. I think it's just the sound that like tickles my brain in the right way. I'm actually really excited for you guys to see what I got cooked for this build because it's much better than my usual. Perfect, isn't it? I'm just playing. Let's get cooking a little more. Okay, that's a start. We will definitely replace the torches with lanterns later, but we're gonna need to go on a mining trip before we can do that. Day 4 began with me working on the back end of the fishing hut. As you can see, this build ends up utilizing a lot of expensive early game items like strip logs, fencing, and trapdoors, which made building a little bit choppy because I constantly had to run to the forest to get more wood. Also, don't ask why I didn't insta strip these logs because to this day, I still don't know. Much better. As you can see here, all of day 5 was building up the dock of our nice little fishing hut. I figured at this point I should take a break from building, so I decided to go for a little mining trip, and about 20 seconds in, I was already getting surrounded by mobs. Once the mobs were taken care of, I took the time to light up some of these surrounding caves so I could hopefully make it a little bit safer when mining. While doing so, I ran into a little zombie and spider, which I took care of with no issues. Then it was time for mining, with our main targets for this trip being iron, copper, and coal. We needed the iron for some armor alongside some chains and lanterns to help finish the fishing hut. The coal is of course for smelting and torches, and the copper is to make some copper grates to make the fishing cages at our dock. If that doesn't make sense, you'll see really soon, and it looks really cool. During our cave spelunking, I stumbled onto a skeleton that had an enchanted bow, and after killing it, we actually got the drop. That means we just hit an 8.5% drop rate, which is eerily similar to a certain something we need later, so hopefully we can get lucky like that when we actually need it. I eventually made my way back to the middle of the cave and wanted to start smelting my iron. However, after placing the furnace, I realized I hadn't found a single piece of coal yet, so we were stuck mining naked until we got some. I was finally able to find some coal after a lot of exploring, but at this point we still only had a grand total of 6. But even with our measly 6 coal, we could still get enough iron smelted for a full set of armor. While waiting for the iron to smelt, I got ambushed by multiple different skeletons, and I mean, just look at this second clip. I was just sitting there minding my own business and got popped. Best part is I went right back and I didn't get shot again. Like, how does that make any sense? After a little bit, we had enough iron to make a full set of armor, and now we were looking at nice and snazzy, and most importantly, safe. The rest of today was just more mining, and tomorrow morning we'll go over the loot. Our next morning began with upgrading to our first set of iron tools. Loot-wise from our trip, we got about a stack of iron if you include our tools and armor, a stack and a half of copper, an enchanted bow, and a tiny bit of coal. I went ahead and farmed up our little bit of wheat and made a couple pieces of bread. After that, I made a boat to search the surrounding area of the island to hopefully find a shipwreck and get ourselves a carrot. And lucky for us, there was one right offshore. However, not so lucky for us was the fact that there were no carrots inside. We got trolled by getting potatoes, of course, but we did get 2 coast armor trims, which I guess is, it's got to be somewhat lucky. I actually don't know the drop rate off the top of my head, but I would assume that's somewhat lucky. While searching for more shipwrecks, I also spotted an ocean monument just offshore, which was pretty cool, and for whatever reason, it felt really ominous looking around into the empty ocean like this. It reminded me a lot of Finding Nemo for some reason, like the scene where they're looking out at the boat. It's like early on in the movie, and Nemo goes and touches touches the butt. It's like that scene kind of. Or maybe I'm remembering it completely wrong, but it's something from Nemo. The rest of the day was tree chopping with the goal of getting enough to completely finish the fishing hut without having to gather any more resources while building, because that's already getting really old. While chopping trees, I also came to the realization that I should have been using the wheat to breed the cows and sheep this entire time instead of making bread. If you've been thinking this the entire time, feel free to call me a goofball in the comments, or just, I was just burning wheat on bad food when I could have been, starting the farm of good food. Speaking of comments though, every video I vow to respond to every comment for the first 2 weeks, so feel free to test me on that. I love chatting with everyone, and selfishly it helps the video's performance, so it's a win-win for everyone. So yeah, feel free to shoot a comment. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you. The next 4 days were all focused on finishing up our fishing hut. Day 8, I started building up the second story of the hut, and as you can see, this is overall going to be pretty small. My main goal with it was to basically be a nice little starter house, with our main big house coming later. One thing I did that I thought looked really good was using stairs as part of the flooring for the balcony. It just gave the floor some more depth and just made it not boring and flat. Day 9, while chopping trees, I had to clear out quite a few skeletons that were clearly very against deforestation, which I gotta admit, I love the passion. Once the wood was collected though, I also went and collected a bunch of cobblestone so I could start the roof soon. I then took our new cobble and threw it in the furnace to smelt it into stone. With some of that stone, we crafted a stone cutter and then cut a copper block into some copper grates, which are gonna act as fishing cages, which, like I said earlier, actually look really good. And this officially checks off our first new item collected from the update. Like every SoundCloud rapper, I spent way too much of my net worth on some chains, but hey, at least it looked cool. When leaving my house, I got jump scared by a creeper, and thankfully he wasn't able to blow up a chunk of the house, so that was good. And even better news, this totally doesn't happen again later today, with the house getting blown up. Totally not. Last task on day 9 was once again spending too much iron on visual upgrades with these lanterns. Oh yeah, and if you didn't pick up my super subliminal foreshadowing, this did happen. I was super thrilled. This is my favorite thing to happen in Minecraft. So when it happened, I was smiling. I was not punching my keyboard. Totally not. I spent the first chunk of day 10 fixing our happy accident from the night before, shout out Bob Ross, and then went ahead and built the roof. As you can see, we used the stone from yesterday to outline the roof and then filled the rest in with oak slabs. If you struggle with roofs like I normally do, I would highly recommend messing with slabs instead of just using stairs. To me, it was a little more tedious, but it looked way better and honestly wasn't that hard. The thunderstorm also brought some unwelcome guests to my home, which was not appreciated. I don't think I've formally mentioned it, but in case you didn't see, we got a piece of bamboo in the shipwreck, which I've been growing to compensate for our lack of fuel at the moment. The entirety of today was just adding the finishing touches to the build. I made the classic stair and sign chair and added some barrels for decoration, put glass into our windows, upgraded our lighting, and lastly threw some trapdoors around the windows to add a bit more detail. To finish off, let's have a little tour of the hut here. We got this beautiful dock to fish on that even comes with a parking spot for your boat. Then we of course have our little balcony where you can look out over the ocean and watch the sunset, which is actually stunning in first person. Day 12 started off with me sorting my loot so I can avoid the issue I run into every single video where I just throw everything in random chests, and then 50 days in we have to spend like 3 straight days organizing, so hopefully we can avoid that for once. Next, I finally made an animal pen so we can start breeding the cows and sheep, and perfect. Once I had the sheep lured, I shared some wheat, and just like that we had a cute little baby sheep. I was gonna go straight to luring the cows, but as you can see we were running low on hunger and I really didn't want to use the wheat or potatoes, so I went axe fishing. While the fish was cooking back home, I went and got our cows, which was a very slow process. Needless to say, cows are not the fastest swimmer, nor are they smart, because they kept blocking each other from entering the animal pen, which led to me having to try and nudge one in, but we eventually got them both in. I wanted to make another mining trip to hopefully get ourselves some diamonds and get better prepared for the trial chambers, but 10 fish didn't seem like enough food for an extended mining trip, so I once again did some population control in the ocean. At this point, I was still more down bad than a frat guy without a zit of chinos when it came to fuel for our furnace, so I cut all of our bamboo and used it to start making charcoal. For a while, I was pretty much just doing laps between the forest and our furnace to continually make charcoal. After that, I bred our animals again, and honestly, from now on, I'll just just do occasional updates on the animal pen so I don't have to say it twice a day for the rest of the video. Our axe was pretty much cooked, so I spent some iron to make a new one and also made myself a sword to better defend myself in the caves. I know axes deal more single target damage, but I like having the sweeping blade effect inside of caves whenever you get surrounded in those tight quarters. I think it can actually be really clutch, so I wanted to have both. By the time I was finally ready for the mining trip, the day was pretty much over, so I figured I might as well wait for a fresh day and spent the rest of the night chopping trees and also made myself a fresh shield. Days 14 through 18 were all centered around mining, and boy does this trip get a bit stressful. Everything started off pretty relaxed with me just picking up all the pretty shiny ore that I saw, and for a second I genuinely thought this was going to be an easy trip because everything seemed to be going great. I mean, I even found this massive 16 veiner of iron, and I think in all of day 14 I saw maybe 3 mobs total. To keep the good vibes rolling, we even spotted our first diamond in the morning of day 15, and lucky for us it was a 2 veiner. I also always check diagonally around diamonds. If you've been playing Minecraft a while, you probably do this too, but if you don't do that, I would recommend it because sometimes you get lucky and you find some bonus ones. At this point, we started running into mobs a bit more consistently, and here was our first somewhat close call. We had a couple creepers run up on us with a supporting skeleton that got us all the way down to 2.5 hearts. For whatever reason, it always feels so much more intense in the moment compared to commentating it back later. Like, watching this looks like it was all pretty easy, but when I was actually playing, I nearly needed a new pair of underwear after taking that second shot from the skeleton. All that being said though, this is nowhere near as close of a call that comes a bit later on in the trip, but we'll get there soon. Eventually, I found myself at the bottom of a massive cave and could see multiple exposed diamonds high in the wall. I just had to figure out how I was going to get them without dying. The first test we faced was this skeleton twosome, which thanks to our shield and the fact that they shot at the same time was actually fairly easy. And right after, we were able to get the diamond, and apparently there was a skeleton that didn't like me for taking his friends out. The second exposed diamond was an easy grab, so now there was only one left to get, which as you can see is very high up, which is a bit spooky because we are going to be one skeleton shot away from falling a whole lot of blocks and having to restart. To get there, I mined up some deep slate to build up to it, did some water parkour to save on blocks, then built my way up to the diamond, which had me terrified like I said. But diamond number 3 ended up being no trouble whatsoever. When trying to find a tunnel out of the big cave, I found yet another free diamond, which was much appreciated. Random side note here, but little midget zombies just piss me off for some reason. Like, having to try and hit their tiny little hitbox just, oh my god, it drives me nuts. And just, I don't want to spoil too much, but in the trial chambers later, we face some baby zombie trials, and let's just say it doesn't make me happy. Some good news for us though is I did get some revenge on a baby zombie and pushed him in some lava and watched him burn alive, and man, that just made me smile. You know, after saying that out loud, I might sound like a psychopath. I promise I'm not, okay? It's just a block game, I promise. But take it out of context. Like, let's take it out of Minecraft and let's put it in like The Walking Dead. Like, can you imagine if Rick from The Walking Dead or Carl or who, I don't care. Imagine they took a baby zombie and they like burned it alive and they just sat there and smiled. Like, that would be disgusting. But look, it's a block game, all right? It's different. Let's just move on. I found a little underwater pool and spotted a sneaky diamond, which I of course grabbed for myself. This right here looked so juicy and satisfying to me for whatever reason. Nothing special, but I just wanted to point it out because it looked beautiful. I explored another underwater cave and found a large pocket of coal, which almost had me more excited than finding diamonds at this point because I mean, look, I'm down bad for fuel. This right here is a prime example of why it's nice to have a sword when exploring caves. You just never know when you're going to turn a corner and a bunch of groupies are going to come around and crowd you. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm used to it because, I mean, faceless Minecraft YouTubers are pretty popular at school and in public, so I mean, I'm used to it. I'm used to getting surrounded and having to, you know, push all the women off me. And look, man, it just comes with the game of being a pixelated waffle online, huh? Back to mining. After all that mining and fighting, I officially ate my last piece of food and our shield was almost completely broken. And while trying to get a diamond, I somehow let this happen, which means we now had to get all the way back to the surface with 2.5 hearts and no way to regen. Oh, and then this also happened. This sent me into an absolute panic, so I ran deeper into the caves and boxed myself in so I could try and formulate a plan. Starting off, I made a furnace and started smelting some iron so I could make myself some picks because our old one at this point was broken. I was also hoping to make a shield but didn't have any wood, so we essentially have 1 block left with this shield before it breaks, and then we're just naked with no health. So hopefully we can save this. After thinking for all of 30 seconds, the game plan was pretty simple. I was gonna mine up, and if I mined into a cave, I would quickly cover the hole and mine in a different direction until I could safely mine straight up again. One good thing that came out of all this was the fact that I did find a bunch of coal, and as you can see, I was mining in a 2 wide strip with a torch at the bottom to protect us for when gravel dropped on our heads. If we didn't do this, I would have definitely suffocated right here and lost, so I was actually smart for once. That was weird. I got even more coal while going upwards, and after using nearly an entire pickaxe, finally ran into water, which spit us back out in the middle of the ocean. And luckily for us, unlike the last video, there aren't any zombie dolphins that were gonna come paralyze us, though getting home was no issue. Also, real quick, YouTube didn't want to push that one out for some reason, so if you like zombie apocalypse videos, I thought it was actually one of my better videos I've ever made, so feel free to check it out. If not, thank you for just making it this far. You making it this far is supporting my dream of doing this full time. So thank you, and I hope you have a good day and week in life. Anyways, let's keep playing Minecraft. Once back home, we had a massive breeding party, and we are getting to the point where we should be able to start sacrificing some of these for some food in the next couple days. Overall, from our mining trip, we got 31 diamonds, over a stack of coal and lapis, and nearly a stack of iron, which I would say makes this a majorly successful trip. Last thing on day 18 was making a new shield and catching some fish so we could heal up before tomorrow. The next morning, I finally remembered that the main goal of this video was to get every new block and item from the update, and up to this point, I was sitting at 1 of 65. With that being said, we are currently 1.5% complete with this challenge, and we are about through 20% of the days at this point. So we gotta fix this. Starting off, I used a stone cutter on a block of copper to get ourselves its new chisel variant. In between our new item crafting, I took a quick second to make a blast furnace so we can smelt all the ores from our mining trip earlier. Our next new items were copper trapdoors and normal doors. The next item we crafted from the update was ironically the crafter. I'm not smart enough to utilize this to its fullest potential, but I know this is going to make mega farms so much more OP. With those 4 items made, we now had a little over 7.5% of the new items, so look at that, that's progress. Granted, those were the easiest items on the entire list. After our crafting party, I utilized our new blast furnace and started smelting down all the raw ore we had. Quick side note, these shaders are just gorgeous. I mean, look at how pretty it is when it rains. I farmed up all my wheat, and it was at this point I realized that the farm needed to be upgraded, so that was next up on the docket. To finish off day 19, I took care of some rude solicitors and went fishing for some more food. Before upgrading our farm the next day, I took a few minutes to boat around the island to check for any sugarcane I may have missed, and unfortunately for us, there was none, which meant no high level enchants for us. After our boat ride, I went back to the mines to get some cobble for the designing and building of our new and improved farm area. Now that we had our cobble, I spent the rest of the day outlining what was going to be a giant crop circle. The next morning, I completed the circle. The next task was to cut down all the trees, which came with some pushback from the local bees, but since I'm a waffle, endangered bee laws don't really apply to me. After that, just like that one group of dudes in your high school, I started my own lawn mowing business so I can call myself an entrepreneur. And as the new owner of a failing enterprise, I couldn't afford to buy polished diorite, so I instead had to go mine it myself to get the blocks for the next part of the build. Days 22 through 26 were all focused on finishing our new farm. Step 1 was to make the irrigation system to make sure every piece of farmland would be saturated. To pull this off, we have to add these diagonal lines of water, which end up making this farm look much cooler, especially once we cover it with the diorite slabs, as you can see here. Also, don't worry about that cobble outline, that will change by the end of the set of days. The last part of the irrigation system was filling in the blocks under the outline, which we honestly should have done before making the outline because now it's a lot more tedious. It ended up taking all of day 23 to finish this process. Okay, I mean, come on, look at how nice these look. It rained the night before and it just, sorry, I'll stop bringing these up. I just am enamored. Step 2 of making the farm was to till all the dirt, which made for such a satisfying time lapse. So let's just enjoy it for a minute. I went to stomp on the old farm that was outside of our circle now, and for whatever reason, it just wouldn't break. Like, of course, I always break it when I don't want to, but then when I actively try and mess up the dirt, it just doesn't want to. Step 3 was, of course, planting all of our crops, and to speed up the process of filling in all of the farmland, I also bone mealed both the potatoes and wheat. To end off day 24, I mined a boatload of cobblestone and spent the whole night watching stone smelt. Super fun, I know. Step 4 was fixing our ugly cobblestone border with stone slabs and walls. And to give the perimeter some more variety, I also added in some gates to break up the wall. Then at night, I once again watched cobblestone smelt. Finally, on day 26, I went through and added some normal cobblestone walls to make it look a bit more aged, and while doing so, a creeper came up and said hello. I almost forgot, I also added some lanterns to the top of the walls so this wouldn't turn into a mob farm at night. Here is what the finished farm is looking like. We obviously still need to finish planting all the crops, but there's the design. Overall pretty simple, but to me it looks incredibly clean, and again, once everything's filled in with crops and fully grown, it's going to look even better. After the farm tour, I placed all our newly crafted blocks from a few days ago, and what I found interesting was the fact that the copper doors and trapdoors could be opened and closed without redstone, even though it's made of metal, which I thought was kind of weird, but I mean, I like it. In all honesty, I didn't have any use for the crafter, so I kind of just made Tetris shapes in it for a little bit and eventually made something. Yeah, I mean, as you can tell, I'm super mature, and, you know, just to make it a little more realistic, I did shorten it by 1, alright? I don't want to be a liar, so. Also, side note, while I breed the animals, I specifically put the new blocks outside so we could see how the copper ones look as they oxidize and turn more turquoise. To end off day 27, I crafted a full set of diamond armor alongside a diamond sword and pickaxe, and was planning on keeping the last 2 diamonds for an enchanting table. If you can figure out why this ends up being dumb and pointless, you are smarter than me in this moment. Little fit check here. For some reason, your first set of diamond armor on any world feels so crispy. Days 28 through 30 were a lot of housekeeping, which began with animal breeding, potato farming, and potato cooking. Once our chores were done, then it was on to looking for a lava pool so we could get some obsidian, and some diamonds in the wall ended up leading us right to our destination. There was a bunch of tough blocks right next to the lava pool, so I took the time to mine a stack so we could now check more of the new items off our list once we got back home. When the next morning rolled around, I finally came to the realization that you need a book for an enchanting table, which we did not have access to. We could at least make the Nether portal, and don't ask me how this was my first attempt at it because I genuinely don't know how I did this. I went in the ocean, grabbed some gravel, and then broke it for some flint. Unfortunately for our farm animals, after breeding them again, it was time to start unaliving them so we could get some higher quality food. But hey, at least I got to go out in a good mood, if you know what I'm saying, right? I'm just saying there's worse ways to spend the last few minutes of your time alive, so I mean, good for them. As you can see, I started using bamboo planks as fuel since it not only saved me coal, but was also more efficient than just using bamboo sticks or blocks. To prep for the building of our main house, I planted a boatload of saplings to end off day 29 since we were going to need a lot of wood. And don't worry, we are going to the trial chambers before we build that house, so that's coming very soon. First task on day 30 was crafting all of the new tough blocks, which was really just using the stone cutter a bunch. Once it was all crafted, I threw them all down in a line, and I gotta say, for such an ugly base block, tough actually cleans up pretty nice. With the crafting of these new blocks, we now had 18 of these 65 new items, which meant we were now 27.7% complete with our main goal. However, most of the remaining items had to be acquired in the trial chambers, so basically we just got all the easy ones done, and now we had to actually go earn the rest. Well, I guess except the 20 paintings, those are kind of easy because they just cost wool and sticks, but the remaining items are the hard ones because we actually have to hit drop rates and stuff like that, so yeah, trial chamber soon, like I just said. The rest of day 30 was practicing my deforestation skills. While you watch me get wood, we need to address a certain issue for this video. We have no way of legitimately finding a trial chamber unless we just aimlessly mine forever and hope to get lucky. So there's realistically 2 workarounds here. We can 1, use one of these seed websites that tell you where all the structures are, or 2, recreate the world seed in a creative world, trade a villager for the trial chambers map, find the coordinates in that world, and then go back to our hardcore world we're in now and then go to those coordinates. After a lot of thought, I've decided to go with option 2, but in order to do that, I have to sacrifice either diamonds or emeralds and a compass in the hardcore world to mimic the trade, which is normally 12 emeralds and a compass. Now to me, emeralds and diamonds aren't worth the same, so I think a fair conversion rate for diamonds to emeralds is 2 to 1, meaning 1 diamond is worth 2 emeralds. To me, this is fair because emeralds are infinite and diamonds are finite. I mean, you can trade sticks for emeralds, so I think that's a fair conversion, and hopefully you don't mind this workaround. I didn't really plan for the fact that we wouldn't have access to villagers when I planned this video on the island, so I figured this was the most fair way to do it. If you don't like it, you know, just use your imagination and we can just move on. I mean, it really isn't a big impact on the video, but I just wanted to be transparent. Anyways, moving on. With all that said, on day 31, I began by making a compass and then grabbed 6 diamonds out of our chest, which meant we were ready to make our offering. I went to the western side of the island, dug a hole, threw our offerings in, and lit it on fire. Here's the first person view as well. Again, I'll admit this isn't the most ideal situation, but this is the best workaround I could come up with. I wanted our sacrificial spot to burn forever, so I lit the nether portal, hopped in the nether, grabbed a piece of netherrack, and placed it in the sacrificial spot so our sacrifice would burn for eternity. I did make sure to chop the tree trees near the fire pit to ensure we didn't pull a California and just have everything burnt down. Lastly, I took my extra copper trapdoor and put a lid on our little fire pit for aesthetic purposes, and spent the rest of the day just chopping trees. Okay, so like I said before, I remade the world seed, threw down a cartographer villager, and traded for a trial explorer map. The reason I wanted to do this method over just using one of the seed websites was so we could still experience using the new map. I mean, it's really no different from a hidden treasure map, but I still wanted to do it for the culture. Lucky for us, the trial chambers was actually pretty close to our island, so we're not even gonna have to travel that far. Okay, hopefully you're not too confused, but we're back in our hardcore world now, and it was time to make our way to the trial chamber spot. I kind of forgot to bring a door so we could mine underwater, so I left the boat as a marker and swam to shore to get ourselves some doors. And I also made another boat out of convenience, so now we had two out here. Then I popped the door in a little hole we made, and now it was time to make a spiral staircase down until we hit the chambers. This chamber was a lot deeper than expected and took us the entire rest of the day to reach, and here was our first look inside. Last thing was digging out this little space for our bed to go. The next 3 days were all spent in the chamber, and spoiler alert, these things are so fun to explore. Almost right away, I had activated a bog trial, which is one of the new mobs from the update, which had a little less health than normal skeletons, but shot poison arrows. As you can see here, there were also a bunch of silverfish spawning, and that was the result of another trial I had accidentally activated, which meant we were taking on two at once. The first trial drop was a trial key, and the second was a swiftness potion. Trial keys can be used on the new vaults, which can drop anything from mending books to music discs, tridents, enchanted diamond gear, and most importantly for us, ominous bottles. One sneaky good loot source from these trial chambers are the decorated pots. You can get a lot of good valuables, and as you saw there, we even got an emerald block which has a 1.4% drop rate, and then we got a second one in a row. Fun fact, there was a 0.02% chance of that happening, or a 1 in 50,000 chance. So we're already using a lot of luck, which scares me because we need to get lucky for all the rare drops from the vault tables. And that luck didn't stop because now we just hit the 2.8% chance on getting a trial key from the pot, and then 2 pots later we got our third emerald block. So in our first 7 pots we hit 3 1.4% drop rates and a 2.8% drop rate. Look, there ain't no way we're getting that heavy core in a reasonable amount of time now because we've used every bit of our luck. Even if these pots didn't have drops, I'd still break them all just because the sound is so satisfying. Our next trial was against more bogged skeletons, which almost ended in disaster. While trying to bait that back bogged into shooting this armored bogged, I got pushed off and came face to face with the new breeze mob. While trying to book it, I got shot in the butt by a poison arrow and just barely was able to box myself in so I could heal. Once healed, it was time to take on the new breeze mob alongside this party of bogged, which went surprisingly smoothly. The breeze trial spawned yet another one, and I gotta say these things look absolutely awesome, and I love the fact that their wind attacks can activate buttons. That is just a really cool mechanic to me. The breeze trial gave us our 4th trial key, and the bog gave us our 5th. These do have a 50% drop rate from the trial spawner, so it's not too surprising we're getting them so consistently. Trial number 6 gave us some variety with it being spiders, but admittedly this was the easiest trial I faced so far, and from it we got another key. In the same room, I found another breeze trial, which wasn't much of a challenge outside the fact that it turned a fountain on with his airbending powers, which made killing the second one a tad harder, but loot-wise, we did get another key, which was awesome because we need as many of these as we can get. Overall, these normal trials aren't crazy hard, but they're just challenging enough to keep me engaged, and once we get an ominous bottle, we'll be able to see what the harder trials have to offer. You can see what I mean when I say it's still challenging, since I was taken down to really low health multiple times during this bogged fight. That poison is no joke. I found our first vault and used one of our trial keys on it and got iron and emeralds, which is pretty poor loot to be honest. And what kind of sucks about these is the fact that once you open a vault one time, it can never be opened again. Right next to the first vault, I found an ominous vault, which is what can give us our heavy core, which allows us to make the new mace, which I need to play with that. Our vault gave us arrows, a wind charge, and an enchanted crossbow, which was an upgrade compared to the first loot in my opinion. I will say that these chambers are a bit confusing to traverse. This was on day 34 and I managed to walk back into a part of the chamber I had already explored the day prior. You'll never guess what the mob of our next trial was. A really cool thing I found next to yet another bog trial was a normal skeleton spawner. I didn't want to break it since I thought it was like a cool little anomaly, so I instead grabbed a copper bulb and turned it on right on top of the spawner so it would stop working. I started utilizing the crossbow we found and was happily surprised with how effective it was. Like, to be honest, I've never been one to use crossbows, so this was pretty fun for me. Yet another trial key. I then opened a vault and got the new Precipice music disc, which had a 4.2% drop rate, so the luck continues. This is awesome. The next trial was a breeze, and I learned that they deflected arrows, which I guess makes sense because they're pretty much just like mini tornadoes. I tried one more time just to be sure, and then just handled it the old-fashioned way. The first chunk of day 35 was me trying to find some more areas to explore, and I was really struggling until I started climbing around with my water bucket, where I found a weird spot with 3 beds and a diamond, which seemed kind of random to me. My only guess is it's for people who actually have friends, so you can set your spawn in a non-hardcore world. I of course wouldn't know that because I don't have any friends. The new area started with a spider trial, which with my high ground was no issue at all. Below us was also a silverfish trial, which, man, they got the same issue as the baby zombies where their hitboxes are just annoying to deal with. The silverfish gave us a potion of regeneration, and the spiders gave us a trial key, which meant we had a total of 6 now. From the vault right next to the spiders, we got some bottles of honey and an enchanted crossbow that was worse than the one we already had. At least we got to do this again. During this pot-breaking party, we got another trial key, which was pretty awesome. There were also these breeze-looking walls, which was a cool way to help decorate the chambers, I thought. The next vault gave us some arrows, poisoned arrows, wind charges, and an enchanted iron chest plate. While blindly running around, I ran into a room with a chest in it that had 2 ominous bottles, which is so important because that meant we could actually do some ominous trials and get some keys to try and roll for the heavy core, which is probably why half of you even clicked on this video. At this point, our inventory was packed to the brim, so I decided it was time to head home for the time being. But don't worry, we will be coming back for some ominous trials later. As I'm making this, I'm now realizing how long this video already is, so I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit so this video doesn't end up being over 2 hours long. Day 36 started off with me going over the new blocks we got in our adventures in the trial chambers. We got a total of 8 new items, with the most rare being the music disc with its 4% drop rate, and the most important being the ominous bottles, since we can now perform the ominous trials. This haul of items brings our total collection to 26 of these 65 new items. Keep in mind this number is heavily inflated by those 20 new paintings. That being said though, we now have 40% of the new items and officially have our first of the 8 very rare items. We still needed a ton of wood for the making of our main house, so this entire set of days consisted of me running around the island chopping and replanting our trees. I think in total we went through 3 or 4 iron axes, so there was a lot of logs cut. Day 39, I was now cutting down the forest on this side of the island permanently, so we actually had some space to build the house. Once all the trees were cut, I took a water bucket and slowly mowed all the tall grass around our building area, and unfortunately had to evict some more bees, which made them slightly mad. After that though, we could finally start building, and the remainder of day 40 was me putting in the pillars of the house. And as you can see, this place is going to be pretty big, so I'm excited to make it because I think it ends up looking really cool. Remember how I just said it was time to start building the house? Well, I kind of forgot I need a metric shit ton of stone bricks, so I made myself 4 iron picks and started working in the mines. As I mined, I also made sure to be cooking the cobblestone so we wouldn't have to wait forever for it to all smelt. I am still waiting for the day you can use a blast furnace to smelt cobble quicker, because using a furnace is just buns. The 2 furnaces in the mine weren't enough, so I decided to make a little wall of furnaces to exponentially speed up the process. I figure I'm already mining a gazillion pieces of cobble, so I can afford to invest a little back into some furnaces. Last thing on this chunk of days was farming our crops, which honestly takes a long time with how big I made our crop circle. Day 44 was nothing too special. I finished farming all of our crops and then took a stack of potatoes and baked them in our smoker. While those were cooking, I bred the animals, and I gotta be honest, I have wanted to make a joke about using the word bread while breeding the cows and sheep with wheat, but I just haven't been able to figure out how. I then spent the rest of the day splitting up the cobble and charcoal to most efficiently use the charcoal, since we are still down bad for fuel. Days 45 through 53 were all focused around building our main house. We've done a lot of mining and chopping to prepare for this, and here's what our material chest was looking like. We had a little over 14 stacks of stone and over 12 stacks of oak and birch logs. Then we cut up a bunch of stone, and now it was time to start building. Step 1 of the build was simply putting in the walls of the house. After the basic walls were up, step 2 was of course detailing them so they didn't look like boring flat walls. If you want to get better at building, this is the easiest way to do it. Learn to add depth and detail so things don't look so boxy. My plan for this big wall was to have a big kitchen with a massive window on this side so you could look out to the ocean and our fishing hut while you chefed up food. Next part of detailing was adding in slabs and stairs followed by framing up our windows with copper trapdoors. We didn't actually have any glass for windows, so the beginning of day 46, I went out and collected some sand and started smelting it down. And as you can see, we have already ran through almost all of our stone, but the only thing we have left to do is make our roof, which doesn't use an obscene amount of stone, so we should be okay, especially considering the fact that we're using slabs again. Once we had our slabs in hand, it was time to start the tedious process of making a multi-angled slab roof. Honestly, the worst part about this was constantly falling off the roof when I was trying to build. Adding these inner stone outlines within the roof is really what makes it look good in my opinion, but boy was it stressful making sure everything was symmetrical. We finished off the stone portion of the roof by the morning of day 48 and began filling in the inner portion of the outline with oak slabs. These little corner spots make my brain happy for some reason, it just looks crispy. Then it was back to filling in oak slabs. We had a little bit of time left on day 49, which meant it was time to start filling in the massive gaps between the roof and the wall, which ended up being a lot more finicky than I originally planned because I had to balance in water while placing blocks. And after some more work on day 50, here's what the front looked like, and I was honestly really happy with it. Now it was time to fill in the gaps for the side windows. Since these were much smaller, they were a lot easier to complete, and when I walked out the front door, we ran into a wandering trader who unfortunately had terrible trades, so we got to meet my axe. His llamas weren't too happy with my choice, but I just ignored their hatua and hooked them up to our animal fence. After filling in all the gaps, I then moved to the left side of the house and punched out a couple sets of windows. I did something similar to the right side of the house, and as you can see, if you just mess with stairs inside of flat walls, it can make it look a little more interesting. Lanterns were going to be the finishing touch to the build, so I once again invested way too much iron and slapped them on all the pillars outside. And after 9 days of building, here was the finished product. Well, at least the outside of it. We still have to furnish the entire interior, which I'm not normally good at, but we'll do that later because I needed a break after all this building. My plan was to head back to the trial chambers soon, but before that I wanted to do some material gathering for our next build before leaving so we could get straight into building after our trial adventure. For the most part, we really only needed 3 blocks for this build, and 2 of them are located in the Nether, those being quartz and crimson stems. Right when I got the Nether, I spotted a fortress across the lava lake, which I somehow missed when I got our sacrificial piece of netherrack earlier. The first chunk of the day was all mining quartz until I spotted what looked to be a massive crimson forest. I'm not going to bore you by detailing every day of the collecting, but it did take a total of 4 days to get all the crimson wood, which ended up being a total of 7 stacks. And now it was on to mining what probably was going to be around 5 more stacks of quartz. During the quartz grind, I got into a little match with a ghast and really showed him my 5 years of volleyball experience by spiking him in the face with his own fireball. While mining, I realized I actually needed to go into the nether fortress to get some nether wart in order to make the new potions. Outside of the occasional blazes and wither skeletons, this exploration wasn't anything too insane. I did, however, find this glitched lava pool generation, which I found way too interesting. I eventually found the nether wart, and after taking out the defending wither skeleton, I picked up all the warts and soul sand. Ugh. The word wart, I don't know, it's always grossed me out, I don't like it. Last interesting thing to happen in the fortress was running into this corner camping Blaze and his other corner camping buddy who was protecting a chest that gave us a rib armor trim, say that 5 times fast, and diamond horse armor, which was unfortunately useless to us since our little oasis didn't have any ponies. Then it was back to mining quartz, which normally I don't love doing, but for some reason in this playthrough all the material grind has been somewhat relaxing and it's kind of acted as a nice brain break from the chambers and building. I did end up underestimating how many iron picks to bring and had to resort to my diamond pick to end off the collecting. The next morning I stored all of our nether loot and had a bit of a chore day in preparation for our second stint inside the trial chambers. I'm assuming it's going to be much harder than the first time since we will be facing the upgraded ominous trials. Starting off, I used what little gold we had to make a couple golden apples to help in case things get hectic, which I'm assuming they probably will. Then it was on to breeding and relieving some of the animals of their duties. To cook our new meat, I chopped up our bamboo, turned it into bamboo blocks, and then turned those blocks into planks for fuel. Lastly, I made a backup shield and a bamboo raft so we could ride over in style. Our next set of days were all inside of the trial chambers where we were going to have our first experience with the ominous trials. To do this, all we had to do was drink our ominous potion and run up to any of the trial spawners. The immediate difference I noticed was the fact that they now spawn with armor and even spawned with diamond armor sometimes, which as you can see here almost led to me dying in our first trial. I'm also fairly certain that more mobs spawn at once compared to normal trials, but but someone can fact check me on that. Our first piece of ominous loot was unfortunately just a regen potion, which had a 4 times lower drop rate than the juicy ominous key that I wanted. One interesting thing about the ominous trials is that it can also spawn potion effects. Like right here, it was a strength potion, which was a bit of a double-edged sword since it let us deal more damage, but also meant that the silverfish hit harder. Luckily for us, we did get the trial key this time, which meant we had at least one chance at getting any of the 4 new items from the ominous vault. And here's what we got from our first vault: the new banner, diamonds, emeralds, and an iron block. So we didn't get the heavy core, but this was still a success in my eyes because we got at least one of the new items. One potential issue we could run into is the fact that these vaults are just like the normal ones where you can only open them one time. So if we don't get all the needed items from our vaults in this chamber, we are going to have to sacrifice more loot to get another map. And as a rule, just to make it a little bit harder if this does happen, is I'm going to make the amount of stuff we have to sacrifice exponentially increase. So the next time I get a map, I will have to sacrifice 12 diamonds or 24 emeralds. So it's going to be a lot more expensive. Our next trial was a spider trial, which was pretty easy until the infestation potion got put on these spiders, which spawned silverfish anytime I killed one of them. The loot from this trial was a bit disappointing to say the least. I mean, this drop is more rare than the key we want, which made it hurt even more. The 4th ominous trial was a breeze one, and in all honesty, I kind of wish they made these breezes a bit stronger, because for being the new fancy mob, it honestly felt pretty weak. Like, I would much rather fight one of these over the bog trials. That being said though, they are really fun to fight because it's kind of like you're at like a bounce house just getting thrown around while you fight them. So they are fun, but I do wish they dealt maybe a little bit more damage, or maybe spawn 2. That could get kind of crazy. This trial, along with trials 5, 6, and 7, were nothing too crazy and unfortunately didn't give us any keys. Trial 8 was another breeze, which actually took me forever to complete since it just kited me around like a crawler from COD Zombies. We were at least rewarded for our efforts with our second ominous key. Unfortunately, we were not able to go back to back though. Yeah, I mean, these spider trials, by the way, are by far the easiest in my opinion if you have decent armor. I mean, I don't have any enchants, so I can't imagine how much of a cakewalk it'd be with like full prot 4, but spiders obviously can't wear armor, so the ominous variants aren't really too much harder. As you can see here, the trials could also spawn literal fireballs, which is going to cause a problem here pretty soon, and it's honestly kind of tragic. I couldn't find the last spider of this trial, so in the meantime I took care of the silverfish trial, and while doing so, our spider friend found us. Spider loot was another strength potion. A silverfish also hid from me, and once I finally found it, I came back to the trial spawner and the top of it was lit on fire from one of those fireballs, meaning we didn't get the loot, and I just know it was definitely a trial key. I just feel it. I eventually stumbled into a new area of the chamber where things were getting a little bit hectic. Everything started off pretty chill with a single bog trials, which admittedly seemed like it was spawning things pretty slowly. However, it also dropped an oozing potion, which made slime spawn whenever I killed a mob afflicted with it, just like the infestation effect. I know it doesn't sound too bad because slimes are pretty easy to kill, but those combined with the constant poison from the bog actually makes a pretty lethal combo. This trial gave us yet another piece of steak, and as you can see, the next level of this area was a double bogged trial, which honestly scared me a little bit. So to make it a little easier, I drank a strength potion to give myself some help and was ready to use a golden apple at a moment's notice if I felt things were getting too sketch. Pretty quickly, things started to get a bit out of hand, so I popped a golden apple much earlier than I had expected to, and it's a good thing I did because if I hadn't, I would have died right here. I chanced it and just booked it down a few levels and thought I was safe to heal until I got shot from somewhere and went back to half a heart again. I mean, just look at how many arrows were jammed into us. Mondays, am I right? After all this hectic fighting, we were awarded with a few golden carrots and some steaks, so yeah, this is not exactly ideal, but it was definitely fun. I built up to the ominous vault in the room, and from the key we got the flow armor trim, diamonds, wind charges, and an emerald block. So once again, I couldn't complain because now we have 2 of the 4 ominous vault items. There were also some normal vaults, and from the first one we got an ominous bottle, and then the second one was even better with a golden apple, ominous bottle, and emeralds. I found myself in the midst of another bog trial, and guess what? We almost died again. I gotta say, these mobs are like balanced perfectly for the trials because they have less health than a normal skeleton, so they're easier to kill, but with their constant poison, they can actually take you out. So good job, Mojang. You actually kind of cooked on this one. And you can shear their heads for mushrooms if you ever needed to for some weird reason, but kind of cool. And for our efforts, we were rewarded with more baked potatoes. Freeze time. Oh, thank goodness, a baked potato, just what I needed. You'll never guess what trial I was doing here, and you'll never guess what I didn't get. As you can see here, our trial omen was about to wear off, and our diamond helmet almost broke during this adventure, which was a bit of a bummer, but I think now it was time to head home. Day 64, it was time to head home since we were completely out of inventory space and also didn't have a helmet, and my mom always says I gotta use protection. Once home, it was time to tally our new items, which was the flow armor trim, the flow banner pattern, and the copper bulb. We technically got the copper bulb earlier when I lit that skeleton spawner, but now we actually have one to keep, so just mark it now. And for those wondering, we are now 45% of the way complete with our challenge, and if you take out the painting inflation, we are really more like 65% complete, so we are actually getting there. Most of this day was farming the entirety of our wheat, since like I said earlier, we need a lot of hay bales for the next build. Days 65 through 67 were all me prepping for the next build, which was going to be a big old grain silo to give our island some more color variety. Doesn't sound super exciting, but it actually ends up looking really cool. Day 65 was nothing but swimming around the ocean, mining a bunch of clay deposits while utilizing air pockets from doors. Science, please explain this. And this was our clay haul by the end of it. The following 2 days were literally all smelting. I was making sure to use our coal as efficiently as possible, since for like the 5th time this video, we are still poor when it comes to fueling our furnaces. Normally I would start a new project while everything's smelted, but since I'm not stopping the video until we get every item regardless of how many days it takes, I figured I could just have some chill days smelting. The next 8 days all pertain to the building of our silo. Our first task was clearing the trees in our building area. Also, didn't need these here anymore. Step 1 of the build was creating a cylinder type shape while trying to avoid making it look like Clifford's big red dog, if you know what I mean. To break up the red, I also incorporated some quartz pillars. Originally, I was going to use some smooth quartz, but instead went with the pillar versions, as this meant I didn't have to smelt them all, and they look pretty comparable. We unfortunately did have to smelt some more cobble down, as we needed both stone bricks and smooth stone later on for the build. Next step was putting in a row of stairs to add some more depth and variety. Then it was on to making a double stair layer. Quick question, do you prefer time lapses of me building like this, or do you like seeing it in first person? I like the way the third person looks, but if more people like the first person, I'll be sure to do that more in the future. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. Once the double stair layer was in, we had just one more layer of stairs to put in, and then we would be done playing with the stone brick stairs. After the stairs, it was on to filling in the remainder of the walls with the crimson logs, which got a bit kinky with all the stripping we had to do with them. The night of day 71, I didn't want to risk getting blown up by a creeper while building, so I just sat inside and did the Minecraft equivalent of watching paint dry. The morning of day 72, I took our newly smelted stone and put in the foundation for the silo alongside a border around the roof, and then of course put the actual roof in. Day 73, I collected more cobble, and while smelting was visited by a wandering trader who actually had a spruce tree sapling trade that, looking back, I should have at least bought one sapling, but I instead chose to do this. Next part of the silo was debatably the most important part, which was filling in the corners with the brick walls we got earlier, which makes this look way less blocky and more like an actual cylinder. To give the walls even more detail, I utilized a ton of crimson trapdoors, which may honestly be my new favorite trapdoor in the game. Like, their textures are just awesome. I then spent the rest of my iron to make lanterns and started lighting the outside of the build. Here's what the entrance and build was looking like at this point, and holy moly, I love the look of this. Shout out to my buddy Cole for sitting in Discord with me while building this, because I struggled forever with the entrance and he helped me cook. Last part of the build was putting windows in just to add a last little bit of detail to tie it all together. Okay, so I know I just said the windows were the last details, but I lied. We do have 2 more things to add, but one of them requires iron, so we are going to have to go on a mining trip, and not to spoil too much, but this mining trip is going to end up being the most important one of the entire video. Before that mining trip though, I farmed all of our wheat and then took our wheat supply, turned it into a bunch of hay bales, and added this excess hay bale patch on the left side of the build, just so the whole world knows that we're dripped out with wheat. As I just said, the very last part of the build needed more iron, so I was back in the mines collecting exactly that. While exploring, I found not 1 but 2 diamonds, which I planned on saving for another map sacrifice if our vault luck in the trial chambers is bad and we need to find a new one. After a few more iron veins, I was pretty much running into constant dead ends until I noticed a ceiling leaking water, which made me think maybe there's an underwater ravine or cave I could explore to find some more iron. It did end up being an underwater crevice, and in better news, did contain some more iron. We of course didn't have a door in us, so instead I just mined deep enough into the wall until an air pocket was created. With this air pocket, I could mine a couple pieces of iron and then retreat to the hole to replenish our air supply. I decided to keep exploring the cave, and after making another air pocket, I spotted a hole that led head down to another cave. Outside of some gold, I thought this cave was a bit of a dud until I spotted this little opening in the wall. And while looking for some more iron and diamonds, I stumbled onto what I originally thought was a stronghold until I saw that they were actually tough blocks and not stone brick. At the time, I had no clue if this was actually a trial chamber, so I broke in and instantly realized that we either just found a brand new one or stumbled into the old one we had already found. After looking around though, I realized this was a new one, which meant we had fresh vaults and a fresh layout to explore, one that preferably isn't just all bogged trials. I wasn't quite prepped to face the trials now, so I did my little 2-block wide mining tactic until I eventually reached the surface, and you'll never believe where we shot out of. Yeah, it was literally right off our island, and in all honesty, I was kind of confused because I thought the maps traded from villagers always showed the closest chamber, and there's literally no way this is further than the first one we explored, but maybe my understanding's wrong. Once back at my fishing hut, I threw the iron in the blast furnace and then swam down and marked our little trial hidey hole, which admittedly took a bit to find. Now that that was marked, I could finish the silo off by making a cauldron, some chains, and a grindstone. Then we just had to place the grindstone, chains, and cauldron, and now we had a little pulley system for some added detail. Also, just to clarify, I am not the creator of this crane type of design. I think I saw it on like Instagram or Reddit before, so just to clarify. And finally, the last actual addition for the build right now was putting in some hay bales behind each of the upstairs windows to make us look even trippier, even though it was low-key fraudulent since it made us look like we had more wheat than we actually did, but that's besides the point. Finally, our silo was complete, and for those wondering, I am going to take the time to furnish the inside of both this and our main house, but that will be a little bit later because I now had a new trial chamber to explore. Day 78 was pretty much just a prep day since I didn't need to sacrifice any diamonds for another trial map. I wanted to use the few I had left in order to repair my current diamond armor. To do so, I went and mined some more iron, made an anvil, and spent all of our diamonds repairing the armor alongside making an iron helmet. Also, if you're wondering why I went with an iron helmet over a diamond one since we had enough diamonds for it, I figured since the rest of our armor was starting to break anyways, I'd rather repair the 3 pieces of diamond to make sure those don't break and run an iron helmet instead of making a new diamond helmet and then having the 3 other pieces of diamond armor break and having to switch to a bunch of iron armor. Last part of prep was stuffing up our freshly farmed food. Oh, and I also made a backup iron sword in case our diamond one broke while inside the chambers. Days 79 through 83 were all going to be spent in the new trial chamber we just found. I started off by chugging an ominous potion and was instantly introduced to a new trial, which were baby zombies. And these little gremlin were nice enough to give me an ominous key after the trial. Of course though, it wouldn't be a trial chambers without some bogged trials to get through. This trial got a little hectic with the oozing effect spawning a gajillion slimes. I will say the baby zombie trials are by far the hardest out of any of them since they are the perfect combo of speed, damage, and a small hitbox. They are admittedly weak to ladders though. I thought I had a second to eat until this husk came out of nowhere and nearly ended the entire video. We've had a lot of close calls in these chambers so far. I'm not sure exactly how many, but it feels like we've been at one heart like 4 times at this point. This crossbow ladder method is admittedly pretty soft, but you can't tell me it's not effective. No key from the baby zombies. And once again, I couldn't find the last mob from my trial. I don't ever end up finding this one, and in all honesty, I think a good fix for this would be to give the mobs the glowing effect after a certain amount of time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's the same effect you use when you shoot someone with a spectral arrow. I just think that'd be a nice quality of life buff. No key. While fighting a breeze trial, I accidentally activated 2 more bogged trials at the same time, so we were now facing 3 at once. This area was kind of weird because there were a bunch of gaps in the floor where mobs could fall into, and the bogged were actually skilled enough to shoot you from. Bad news though, no keys from any of the 3 trials. Yeah, here's another close call. Thank you, Mojang, for not letting poison kill you, because if that was the case, we would have lost this world at least like 10 times by now. While clearing another trial, I saw that the top of the spawner was once again lit on fire, which meant we needed to find a way to put it out before finishing all the mobs off. Wait, hold on, pause, not like that. You gotta at least take me out to dinner before we start talking about doing that. I was never actually able to make it to the fire, but since I once again had to play a game of hide and seek to get the last spawn, the fire had went out on its own. So when I eventually got back to the spawner, there was a key waiting for us. I'll tell you what, if you said I never had to see a bog again after this video, I may become the happiest person in the history of the planet. These things just make you absolutely rip through food. Another cool addition would be like an anti-poison potion that prevents you from getting poisoned for X amount of time. Like obviously, I think right now you can drink milk and honey to get rid of it, but against a bogged, I mean, you're just gonna get poisoned 2 seconds later, so it doesn't really make sense. The first bogged trial gave us another trial key, and then we went back to back, bringing our total up to 5 keys, which means we have 5 chances to get the remaining 2 rare drops from the ominous vaults. The first ominous vault was an armor trim, emeralds, and an enchanted diamond chestplate that came with fire protection 2. No new items though. I rolled a normal vault and got the Guster banner, which was actually huge because this was only a 4% drop rate, which means we only needed that bolt armor trim, and then we had all the new drops from the normal vaults. I said it the first time and I'll say it again, breaking pots is awesome, and it's even more awesome when you hit the 1.4% drop rate on the music disc. This new trial chambers is an absolute heater, and you'll never guess what our second ominous vault chest had for us too. Yeah, well actually nothing, I just kind of wanted to fake you out there. Ominous Vault 3 gave us an enchanted golden apple, some diamonds, wind charges, and another enchanted chestplate. This new chestplate did come with Unbreaking 3 though, so I did opt to wear this one. With these extra diamonds, I also made a fresh diamond sword and combined it with our broken one for inventory management purposes. Find me just almost losing the world again. Just gonna... While looking for more ominous vaults to open, I did a couple more normal trials and got a couple more trial keys. Ominous vault number 4. And we got it. Yeah, I wish I was doing a live comp for this video because I literally jumped up in my chair screaming. Like, I know it sounds kind of stupid, but I was really worried we weren't going to be able to get this heavy core for a while, so I was hyped. With this, we can now go home and make the new mace, and now only needed one more item from these vaults. And guess what we got from the next vault? Yeah, our luck this video has actually been disgusting. Like, I don't even know what to say at this. So do that, it was time to tally our new items, and wow, this was a good haul. Like I said earlier, we only had one rare item left to get from the normal vaults, so we were looking really good right now. Then it was time for the mace. Pretty snazzy looking, now it was time to test it. I know the whole mechanic around the mace is to use it when falling from high distances, but I was honestly really surprised it couldn't even one-shot cows or sheep. Now time for the real test. Okay, the massive explosion around it is awesome, I can't lie. When checking it out using the replay mod, it looked even cooler, and now we had another perfect test dummy with the Wandering Trader.
The city needs a hero, and I guess it's me.
The next 2 days were simply fleshing out the interior of the silo, starting with the flooring, with stripped birch logs, which in all honesty, any stripped log is some of my favorite flooring. It's easy, a little expensive, but overall looks awesome to me. Next was just filling in little imperfections that were created while building the exterior. I don't know about you, but I don't generally like dirt hanging above where I'm going to be storing my food. Last step of the interior was putting some lighting on the ceiling. Oh, and I actually filled in the second floor with some more hay bales, so I wouldn't be such a poser anymore. Days 87 through 97 were all centered around filling in the interior of our main house. Obviously, we are going to have to go well past 100 days to complete our challenge, but that's okay. That being said, interiors are one of those things that take a while to plan out and put in for not a ton of visual progress, so we're going to rip through these days pretty quick. Day 87, I collected more cobble for stone bricks and then put in our first couple rooms and turned them into secret rooms for honestly no other reason than nostalgia. That being said though, this is one of the 20 new paintings, so we did make some progress towards our main goal today. Day 88, I was putting in the walls that would separate the entrance from the living room and kitchen, followed by the building of the staircase to the second floor. Day 89 consisted of me putting in the stripped oak flooring throughout the first floor of the house except in the kitchen area because I had a different block in mind for that. Day 90, I put in the little storage closet behind the staircase and punched out a big window right next to it so you could look off into the ocean whenever you had to grab your vacuum cleaner or something. Honestly, I just wanted some variety of the wall. There wasn't much like logic behind this part. Also, throughout this time frame, I was periodically cutting trees, just so you know. After the window, it was on to the second floor's floor, which was just birch planks. Day 91 was more plank placing until I eventually finished the floor altogether. Then it was on to the nether to get some quartz for our living room. Day 92, I smelted the quartz, went back to the nether and saw a cow taking what has to be the worst vacation ever, punched some glowstone and put in our TV with its big old speakers. It's beautiful, isn't it? I mean, it's just perfect. perfect. Originally, I was going to use bookshelves to mimic the ever ancient CD cases people used to have, but that obviously wasn't an option for us since we never got the privilege of owning paper. Boom, and now we actually had something that resembled a TV, and in better news, that's now the second of the 20 new paintings, so there's some more progress. I didn't grab enough quartz on the first Nether trip, so I mined some more and then spent way too long trying to design a simple couch. Day 93 started off with a bit of a bang and was followed by squid hunting so we could make some gray dye later, and then put some carpet around our couch. Day 94 started with me making a little seating area behind the couches, and then it was on to making a bunch of mud for the kitchen floor, which seeped into day 95. Then it was on to placing the mud bricks into the floor, which I think look awesome for what's going to be a kitchen area. By the end of day 96, I had the kitchen entirely put in and now just had to make the dining room the next day, and that's exactly what happened on day 97, and holy wow do I love the look of this. So now we had a nice TV room, a beautiful kitchen and dining room table, a nice little bar, and even some kitchen appliances and storage. I mean, this is rich living. The next 4 days were even more building, which was all focused on the upstairs portion of the house, starting with the roof to the staircase and then separating rooms with walls. The first room was just a basic storage area with some walk-in storage spots that connect to the upper front windows. Once the storage room was done, I was on to making the bedroom, which started off with the big quartz bed, which was big enough for me and the homies to all cuddle together at night. Next addition to the bedroom was a desk area that once again was lacking the bookshelves and lectern I wanted, but we still made it work. By day 101, we were on to furnishing the last room of the house, which had a pool table as the centerpiece. I saw this build idea on Pinterest and thought it looked amazing. So again, not my original idea, but the carpet over the signs is genius for this. I still needed to collect a whole lot of paintings, so this room also doubled as my art collection room. By the time the walls were completely filled, we had added a total of 7 new paintings to the collection, and if you think putting them up in here looks whack, just wait till you see where I put the rest of them. Day 102 was nothing but me placing paintings, and yeah, I resorted to placing them on the walls in the silo. I would not recommend this, but here we are. I mean, I was even covering entire windows at this point. Like, this should be illegal. It just kept getting worse too. With this final flower looking painting, we officially collected all 20 new paintings, and I gotta say there are actually some awesome ones. The next day was more collection log hunting with my eyes set on some of the new potions. First up was the potion of wind charging, followed by some potions of oozing, and lastly some potions of infestation. I still needed cobwebs to make the potions of weaving, which we didn't have as of right now. I had some plans on what to do with all the potions once we had them all, but was missing a key component that we will get later. The remainder of the day was prepping for what was hopefully going to be our last trial chambers trip. Days 104 to 107 were all spent in the chambers with the sole goal of getting the armor trim from the normal vault keys, which meant this trip should be easier than the last since I wasn't dealing with ominous trials. It wouldn't be me though if I didn't have an unnecessary close call in an otherwise easy situation. And another one, Vault 1, and no luck. Vault 2, still no luck. And just a reminder, the drop rate for the trim template we are looking for is 6.2%, so this could take a while. Vault 3 gave us a 7% drop, but not the trim we wanted, but it was at least a sharpness 4 book. Vault 4 gave us an enchanted diamond axe, which is only a 3.5% drop rate, which means we basically just got too lucky. Another close call. Vault 6 was straight poo-poo. Another slight close call here that soon after became a very, very close call, where I shat myself trying to close this door. Another 7% hit from this vault, Vault 8, with the same 7%er. Number 9 was Mega Buns. 10 was a Villager's Wet Dream. 11. 12. Here are some bogs, once again nearly ending this challenge right on the finish line. I know earlier I said these were pretty weak, but the more I play, the more I realize these are sneaky strong. It's like the Minecraft equivalent of like dad strength. Like even dads who just don't look strong or just dummy strong for some reason, and I just don't get it. Vault 13, we hit another 3.5%er. Number 14 was an arrow galore. 15 was nothing special, and needless to say, we were lucky that we both found a new trial chamber and the fact that this one was massive. Got caught up in another bogged mosh pit and was rewarded with a bunch of stuff that didn't look like an armor trim, so I really didn't care. However, after 16 vaults, number 17 was finally the big winner, which meant we had now officially collected every new item from both the ominous and normal vaults. When we got back home, I grabbed all the items from the update and put them into their own chests so I could visualize the progress for myself. As of now, all that was missing was the potion of weaving alongside the 4 arrow variants for each of the new potions. Now this presents an issue because in order to make make these arrows, you need lingering potions, and the only way to get those without searching through a million dispensers in the chambers is to get bottles of dragon's breath, which means we're gonna have to make a last minute errands run to the end. Before I left, I threw on the new trims onto our chest plate and pants, and I gotta say, I love the way they both look. If this was gold on netherite, it would look even crazier. After that, I put the sharp 4 book onto our sword, farmed up some more food, threw the extra trims we had on the rest of our armor, and can someone tell me why the gold trim on the iron helmet turns into brown? Like, what is that? The white and the gold should look sick, and it looks like I did copper instead. The next 2 days were both spent in the nether. Most of the time was spent hunting endermen for their shiny little balls, with the last bit of day 110 spent collecting the blaze rods. Morning 111, I made our eyes at ender and had a bad start to finding the stronghold. Towards the end of the day, I had the stronghold pinpointed and just had to mine my way down into it, and the stronghold was nice enough to have a little welcoming party for me. While looking for the portal room, I found a music disc, which I thought was kind of cool, I guess. I mean, don't really need it at this point, but I'll take it. But more importantly, found a library which contained the cobwebs that I needed for the potions of weaving. You know, looking back, maybe I should have came here a lot earlier so I could have enchanted my gear in this video, but I mean, I guess it made the trial chambers a bit more exciting and difficult. Eventually, I stumbled into the portal room, and after taking out a couple silverfish and breaking the spawner, it was time to put the eyes of ender in. Crystals first, dragon breath break, more crystals. And now it was time for the dragon. With 2 final shots, the ender dragon was officially taken care of, and we could now shower in the XP and head home. When I got back home, I threw the cobweb into the brewing stand, and now we had some potions of weaving. Then I turned one of each potion into splash potions, followed by combining them with the dragon's breath to make their lingering variants. The last step to get our last 4 items for the challenge was just circling the lingering potions with arrows, and just like that, we had officially collected every single new item from the 1.21 update, meaning we just completed the main goal of the video, so I mean, good for us. To celebrate our accomplishment, I made another set of lingering potions for all the new ones added, ran to our farm area, and threw all the potions onto our farm animals to see what madness would occur. There was a brain-tingling amount of particle effects in my face, but for whatever reason, when I killed a set of them, the rest of the mobs lost the effects, which made this much less hectic than I had originally planned, and if anyone knows why that happens, I'd love to know, because that was a bit disappointing, I can't lie. But with all that being said, that's going to do it for this video. If you made it this far and want to see more in the future, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm going full time now, so there's going to be a lot more videos. If that zombie apocalypse video sounded interesting to you earlier and you want some more Waffles content right now, feel free to click it right now. It's a long one, so if you need something to fall asleep to tonight, I'm your guy. And if you want to help out even more, a like and a comment helps the algorithm push this out to more people, so that would be awesome. Like I said earlier, I will be responding to every single comment for the first 2 weeks. But most importantly, thank you for just making it this far. It means a lot. These take a lot of effort, so when people watch them all the way through, it's awesome. Makes me feel good, and I'm glad I could entertain you for a little bit. With that being said though, stay safe, have a good day, spend time with your friends and family, and I will see you in the next one because it's gonna be a hard one, and oh boy, well, I'll see you then.